Hi, it's Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching, and welcome to another episode for the Coaching Conversations podcast. Now, we are on Stitcher, we are on iTunes, and multiple different channels. Please check us out. Now, one of the things that you'll get out of our podcast episodes is a lot of content, a lot of strategy. It's not fluff, it's not concept, yet we really want you to engage with the content and let us know your feedback. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. If there's topics you'd love to have us address, we would love to share them with you. Let us know your impact and let us know your feedback. Recently, we've taken one of our service programs, Coachability, and we've combined it with another great company called Outbound View, and we've created this co-brand called Coachable Mind. I am absolutely convinced a coachable mind is missing in the team setting. It's missing for each and every leader. It's missing for teams, departments, and certainly whole organizations. First of all, what is a coachable mind? A coachable mind is somebody, at its core definition, who seeks feedback and coaching proactively for their personal development, addressing blind spots, ultimately cultivating and crafting deep personal self-awareness. Now, I say that with a little bit of a theatrical tone for a reason, because when I think about the data that's out there, Gallup, 71% are neutral or actively disengaged. Only 29% are positively engaged in the workplace, and that number's even gone lower with their latest study. Dr. Tasha Eurich talks about 85% of people in her study were proven to significantly lack self-awareness. McKinsey reported in Q4 in 2022, yet the numbers have even gone up. 42% of people are actively looking for jobs due to a lack of career coaching and development. So not only do people want coaching and development, yet we also have to nurture them to be proactive in getting it. And the toughest thing is, if you look at it at an even more simplistic level, a coachable mind is well trained emotionally, using the major tenets of emotional intelligence to accept feedback, void of agreement or disagreement. See, I'm convinced that we have a challenge with every single employee, present company included. When you hear something you don't like, what do? Do you calm down and say, let me reflect upon that? Or do you feel defensive? And how often do people say, well, give me an example? And then you give somebody an example, and it turns into an argument. Coaching, feedback, a worthwhile professional discussion has left the building. Why? Because somebody's in an emotional state. So when you get feedback at its core that you don't like, or maybe you disagree with, take 3 deep breaths. Now, we had this with one of our client sites. We had 10 managers do this, give real world feedback, constructive feedback. And the rule was, when I give you this feedback to the employee, you have to take 3 deep breaths. All 10 managers came back and said, we noticed a noticeable difference in the way we completed our conversation. See, when you're in the moment and you hear things you don't like, what happens? You get upset. So a coachable mind is somebody who proactively and professionally seeks feedback and coaching. They know they have blind spots. So at its core, very few, if any of us, have ever been formally educated in semester, year-long courses in junior high school, or college on proactively and professionally seeking feedback. Think about it. And one of my, probably the best boss I ever had, she used to always tell me, if you don't like feedback, go get it before someone has to give it to you. I'll never forget that, 40 years later. So a coachable mind is somebody, is an employee, typically an individual contributor. It certainly can be leaders as well. But we've crafted this deliverable, this coachable mind program, to teach people how to become coachable, to become easier to lead, more leadable, if you will, easier to mentor, easier to provide feedback. And its most fundamental core, here's what happens. If I, as an individual contributor, go to my boss and say, What are two things I'm doing really, really well? And what's one area you would encourage me to improve? Notice I didn't say constructive feedback. So we literally coach, train, and educate people to literally do things on their terms, cultivate themselves, and something magical happens. As theatrical as that sounds, people become easier to lead. So when you fold your arms, roll your eyes, and say, give me an example, the employee is really saying, don't give me any more feedback. I'm not emotionally stable or ready enough to handle it. Get away from me. Subconsciously, what do most people, certainly teammates do or peers, and some leaders will do this, they walk away. We literally walk away. And we tell people in our Coachable Mind program, especially individual contributors, the day you start hearing silence and you stop hearing feedback and coaching and getting questions, you should really, really worry. And when I use that statement in our workshop, you see the facial expressions just change. Because I get it every workshop. And we have a Coachable Mind Leads to Coachable Career workshop. And every single time I've done it, people will come back and say, yeah, but what if you get feedback that you just know is wrong and the person just doesn't have all the details? And I'll look at that person and say, even you now asking that question, it gets you kind of riled up, doesn't it? Every single time the person goes, well, yeah, a little bit. And I'll say, you might be presenting yourself just like that. Yes, feedback is not cloaked in accuracy. It's feedback, it's perspective. So like right now, if I said to you, and I said this to a gentleman recently, if I said to you, wow, you're an emotional wreck. And what if that's my perception? And right now you even said, yeah, I'm a little emotional. But of course I took it to the nth degree. You're an emotional wreck. Would I be wrong in my mind? And he sat there and he stopped, and I'm using questions, of course. And I said, it's interesting, isn't it? He goes, yeah. And I said, so what if you smiled and said, wow, first of all, thanks for the feedback. Would you mind if we got back together? I kind of want to absorb this before I say something. I just want to digest it and really kind of dig into it. Is that cool with you? And the guy looks at me and said, I've never done that. I said, most people haven't. I said, I still forget to do it, and I teach this. And it's interesting. So sometimes we have to slow down and interrupt our emotional patterns. It's called a psychological disrupt. So when we ask those people, those 10 managers, to say, I'm going to give you some constructive feedback, I want you to take 3 big deep breaths before you respond. That is interrupting the typical emotional response. The emotional pattern has been interrupted. So, a coachable mind is a coachable career.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Coaching Conversations by Tim Hagen and Progress Coaching. Now, our company is always coming out with new and innovative solutions to help leaders coach their employees. And recently, we just created a new service called Coach to You, where leaders can pick and choose topics and assign 7 to 21-day programs for employees to learn and, more importantly, apply actions and then reflect and share what they're going to do going forward as a result of the learning. It's called Coach to You. We're literally bringing coaching to your employees. If you're intrigued, we'll have a link in each one of our episodes where you can get more information. And again, thank you so much for listening to another episode.